Okay, we have learned the Federal Reserve can affect monetary policy by changing the discount rate. We're also going to find that the Fed can change monetary policy by changing what we call the reserve requirement. Okay, so here's a bank and here's a customer. Okay, when a customer comes in, that customer will deposit money. Okay, will deposit money. Now, when money is deposited, the Federal Reserve says the bank has to hold on to certain parts of that, a certain amount of it. A long time ago, banks were loaning out almost all of the money that was coming in, and that created problems when people wanted to come and get money. Banks make money by loaning it out. However, banks also need money to come in from depositors, so they give it a safe place to be. So banks have to be really careful. They have to loan money out, but they also have to make sure they have money if we want our money, to take it out of our account or take it out of the ATM or whatever. So the Federal Reserve says that every bank will have a required amount of reserves. We call that required reserves, or RR. And the rest can be loanable funds. Sometimes we call this excess reserves. Okay? And that's money that can be loaned out. So let's say, just to make the math easy, that our reserve requirement is 10%. What that would mean is, let's say that this guy comes in and he wants to put $100 and deposit it into the bank. Well, that $100, if the reserve requirement is 10%, that means the bank has to hold on to $10 and it can loan out 90 of those dollars. Does this make sense? So if people from the bank all put their money in and the reserve requirement's 10%, they're holding back 10% just to make sure if anyone comes in, they can get their money out. That doesn't mean they have to loan out all $90. If they might think that people will be needing more money, or that they don't want to give out as much in loans, they can hang on to this money. But they have to, by Federal Reserve law, hang on to at least 10% if that's what the reserve requirement is. Now, if they lower the reserve requirement, let's say they lower it to 5%. Well, if this guy comes in and puts $100 in, now the bank will only have to hang on to $5 and they can loan out $95. So you can see by lowering the reserve requirement, right, it speeds up loans. So that means it's expansionary, right? The more loans that go out there, the more money is being put out and loaned out, more money is being spent. So the lower the reserve requirement, it's expansionary. Well, let's look at if they make it 20%, if they make it higher. Well, if this $100 comes in and the reserve requirement is 20%, now they have to hold on to $20 and they can only loan out $80, which is less money to be loaned out. So that slows the economy down, right? So an increase in the reserve requirement slows our economy, or is contractionary. There's a contraction, right? This would be an expansion if we lower the reserve requirement. So you've seen so far that the Federal Reserve can change the reserve requirement. Lowering it is expansionary. Raising it is contractionary, because there'd be less money to loan out here. If we lower the reserve requirement, there'd be more money to loan out, right? And you've seen that the Federal Reserve can change the discount rate. The lower the discount rate, it's expansionary. The higher the discount rate, it's contractionary, right? Less loans being taken out. So this is the basis of the reserve requirement. This, in real life, does not change very much or very drastically, because a small change in the reserve requirement can lead to drastic amount of changes in monetary policy. So the discount rate has changed quite a bit, and then the amount of treasury bonds being bought and sold changes a lot, almost every day really. But this is something the Fed can do. The Fed can do three things: change the reserve requirement, change the discount rate, or they can buy or sell treasury bonds. And we will have a video for all of those. You've seen the discount rate one, and here is the reserve requirement.